The globe's most contentious billionaire, Elon Musk, is a veteran of litigation. But in one courtroom hearing, things took an unexpected turn. A federal judge not only reprimanded Musk's conduct, he told him to personally apologize out loud. In court, to spes. To le present what went on next surprised everyone in the room. Comment where you're viewing from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the new stories. It began as it so often did with Elon Musk on Twitter. Acquainted with his unfiltered nature on the social media site, Musk had established himself as a man who was not afraid to speak his mind. But in early 2024, one tweet commanded more than mere online reaction. It ignited a legal frenzy. The tweet at issue wasn't about Tesla's newest vehicle or an audacious guess regarding Mars. Instead, it attacked a former Tesla employee who had recently come forward as a witness in a whistleblower case over safety issues at one of the company's factory sites. The tweet named the employee and questioned their motive, suggesting they made up claims for financial benefit. It also contained sarcastic comments on their work ethic and stability of mind. What Musk presumably intended as merely another provocative post soon found itself at the center of a defamation lawsuit. The employee, already subject to intense public scrutiny, complained that the tweet not only harmed their own reputation, but also triggered harassment from Musk's fans. Lawyers started opining almost at once. Although the tweet did not contain profanity or overt threats, most claimed it entered into risky ground by mentioning a party to an active legal proceeding. This was not just about speaking out or standing up for one's business. The employee's legal representation contended the tweet was an intentional attempt to discredit and intimidate a pivotal witness, something the court would not take lightly. The D lawsuit against Musk accused him of defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. At the core of the case was the contention that as a prominent CEO with tens of millions of followers, his words carried extraordinary significance. Any ordinary person could publish a similar viewpoint and get no notice. But when he does it, the ripple effect can be tremendous, and the real-life repercussions feel very real to those he speaks about. When the case landed in court, the issue was not merely the tweet itself, but the larger context of how influential people use their platforms. Lawyers for the plaintiff highlighted that the post resulted in a flood of hate mail, online threats, and even doxing attempts directed at their client. They claimed that Musk was aware or should be aware that naming someone in particular in such a situation would unleash a torrent of harassment. Musk's lawyers countered, however. They asserted that he was merely responding to charges leveled at his company and exercising his right to free speech under the First Amendment. They claimed the tweet was an opinion and wasn't a factual statement that would be considered defamatory. Additionally, they asserted that public officials are frequently subject to criticism and that the former staffer should be ready for that kind of attention once they made public claims. However, the court did not view it as merely a matter of free speech versus defamation. The judge presiding over the case seemed more and more alarmed about the timing of the tweet, the personal tone, and the seeming motivation behind it. Musk's enormous influence and reach distinguished this from other online utterances. It wasn't a mere opinion expressed by a private citizen. It was a powerful individual wielding his megaphone on the internet to question publicly someone who had criticized him. As the case progressed in court, more focus was placed on the future of social media in high-stakes court cases. Musk was not being measured solely on whether his tweet was nasty. The larger issue was whether it impinged on the judicial process and put an unreasonable burden on a whistleblower. That question laid the groundwork for one of the most surprising courtroom showdowns in Musk's legal history. As the case gained traction, the courtroom became the focal point of public and media attention. Elon Musk, so combative in the face of legal battles, strode into the hearing with the same swagger that had seen him weather so many regulatory wars, shareholder fights, and media glare. His demeanor was casual, bordering on disdainful, but there was something different in the air this time inside the courtroom. This was not about a fine or a settlement or an executive decision. It was regarding personal behavior, and it was evident the judge took it to a different extent. From the beginning, the judge set a stern tone. He spoke to both legal teams with accuracy and made clear that the court demanded professionalism, not theater. Musk sat next to his lawyers, demonstrating little display of emotion as the plaintiff's legal team presented a thorough case. They claimed that his tweet was more than commentary. It was a calculated attack designed to humiliate and discredit a whistleblower. They played audio recordings of the media backlash, showed screenshots of online threats the former employee faced, and explained how the incident had impacted their client's personal and professional life. He claimed that his tweet was more than commentary. It was a calculated attack, designed to humiliate and discredit a whistleblower. Musk's lawyers replied by stating that their client had every right to defend his name and Tesla's reputation. They contended that he never directed anyone to harass the employee and did not incite any criminal activity. At a certain point, even the defense took a turn and highlighted Musk's social media personality, characterizing him as one who jokes or responds impulsively on social media, but never with ill intention. They emphasized that his tweet, though unfortunate, was within the limits of free speech. But the judge remained unimpressed with that spin. He interrupted several times to inquire about Musk's intention, his knowledge of what would happen if he posted those words, and whether anyone with his level of influence should have a higher bar. One especially sharp exchange drew everyone's attention. The judge addressed Musk and asked bluntly, "Do you think that your words have consequences?" Musk hesitated, leaned into the microphone and said, "Sometimes yes, but that does not mean I am responsible for others' reaction." That response appeared to change the tone of the hearing. The judge continued to clarify that influence and responsibility are not contradictory. He stated that someone of Musk's profile, who exerts influence over markets' public opinion and millions of followers, cannot act as if he can speak without consequence. He mentioned previous cases involving public officials and the changing legal understanding of online. His conclusion was unmistakable. Musk's tweet was not merely ill-advised, it was irresponsible. Next came the moment that left the room in shock. In a surprise and seldom used move, the judge instructed Elon Musk to make a public on-the-record apology in court, not via PRP, not as a tweet, but in person, on the record, and to the court and the former worker. It was an exercise of extreme judicial power, seldom directed at a figure of Musk's prominence. The courtroom was still as the instruction was given. Musk's lawyers requested clarification. Was it a recommendation or an order? The judge insisted again. This court is issuing an official directive. Mr. Musk is to publicly apologize in this courtroom. Reactions were swift. Musk glanced at his lawyers, clearly taking in the moment. This was not what anyone had expected. Whereas most had anticipated a warning, or at worst, a money fine, few could have envisioned that the court of a federal judge would require a personal apology from one of the biggest tech players in the industry. It was more than a verbal rebuke of Musk's legal argument. It was a verbal rebuke to his public image. The man who commanded the action was being commanded himself. In the aftermath of the unprecedented court order, rumors ran rampant. Would Elon Musk obey the order, or would he challenge it the same vigor that he had used in previous court battles? The media analyzed every possible scenario. Legal commentators were arguing whether the order would be appealed, and social media was filled with a variety of views from agreement with the judge's ruling to anger at what some perceived as a curb on freedom. True to character, Musk said nothing, or at least nothing publicly. Not a single tweet mentioned the court order. A remarkable silence for someone who was known to respond immediately and loudly to controversy. And then the unthinkable occurred. Musk decided to obey. On the morning of the day the session was set to take place, the courtroom was full. Reporters filled the gallery and legal observers occupied every seat. Musk walked in with no fanfare, no sunglasses, no entourage of bodyguards elbowing aside a throng. He had on just a plain suit, and his expression was serious, even grave. This was not the ebullient, frequently confrontation-style CEO people were accustomed to seeing. This was a person who knew everyone was watching and had elected to do things differently. As the judge walked in, everyone focused at the front of the room. Following a quick procedural back and forth, the judge spoke directly to Musk, reminding him of the mandate and asking him to proceed. Musk rose slowly, smoothed his jacket, and made his way to the podium. What ensued was no big speech, nor tearful appeal. It was rather a very measured apology, one that walked the line between personal responsibility and designed messaging. He started by endorsing the tweet and the damage it could have done. I acknowledge that my tweet about Mr. Wilkins, the previous employee, was inappropriate and offensive. It was a bad move on my part, and I know the impact it had not just on him, but also on the public perception of the case. His tone was firm, lacking sarcasm or humor. There was no attempt to shift the blame. I wish to genuinely apologize to Mr. Wilkins for my choice of words and for the aftermath, he went on. I also wish to apologize for my respect for this court and the judicial process. Being an individual who has strong beliefs about the ideas of innovation and progress, I also have strong convictions about accountability and fairness. Onlookers commented on the lack of qualifiers or apologies. Musk did not say whether I had offended anyone. He did not argue that the tweet was misconstrued. He just took responsibility for it. Some thought his lawyers had written the statement for him, but it was the manner in which he delivered it that surprised individuals. He was not reading from script. He wasn't seeking comfort from his lawyers. He addressed the court clearly and straightforwardly. He concluded by talking about the larger picture. I know that with broad reach comes great responsibility. Nowadays, with the speed of communication and the reach of influence being worldwide, in seconds we must be careful in what we say. I will do better. And then he sat down. The room fell silent for a second. The judge thanked Musk for his declaration and stated that the court deemed the issue of the apology settled. No further remark was made. Musk's attorneys stayed quiet, and no one on the plaintiff's side publicly reacted during the hearing. But the reaction outside the courtroom came swiftly. Footage of the apology was widely shared online. Commentators argued over its authenticity. Others lauded Musk for his taking responsibility, calling it proof of maturity and development. Others interpreted it as a legal nicety, a tactical decision to prevent further penalty or hurt to Tesla's public image. Whichever the interpretation, the act in itself was new to Musk. For the first time in his public life, he had been forced not only to respond for his words, but to retract them. The consequences of Elon Musk's courtroom apology resonated far beyond the courthouse walls. The internet reacted almost instantly with a wave of responses. Social media, news agencies, and stock analysts all chimed in, examining every phrase of Musk's apology and interpreting its impact on his reputation and on his company. Some regarded the apology as a breakthrough, a moment of rare humility from a man most famous for contempt. Others were less optimistic, declaring it to be a staged performance intended to placate the court without really claiming the responsibility of his actions. On X, previously Twitter, hashtags about the apology went viral for days. Clips of Musk's court appearance went viral, particularly the sect Ion, where he acknowledged that with great reach comes great responsibility. For some it was surreal to witness the billionaire, typically so brash and unfiltered, speaking with restraint. The tone was new, and it raised questions. Was this the start of a new chapter for Musk, or a mere temporary shift under the gun of legal pressure? Tesla investors were quick to react in material terms. During the days after the apology, the company's shares saw a slight but perceptible fall. Analysts noted that although the decline was not dramatic, it did show a degree of uncertainty. Investors weren't so much shaken by the apology itself, but by what it meant, a change in Musk's public behavior that could have lasting effects on the company's brand and leadership. One CNBC analyst noted, "When Elon Musk speaks, markets listen, and when he apologizes in court, they listen even more intently." Corporate-level discussion was apparently ongoing within Tesla and SpaceX regarding the necessity for more disciplined public dialogue. Certain board members had long complained about Musk's ad hoc use of social media. The courtroom moment added substance to their complaints. Behind the scenes, discussion resumed on introducing tighter controls on executive messaging, though Musk has long bristled at such restrictions. Meanwhile, lawyers considered the case possibly precedent-setting. The order for a public in-person apology by the judge was considered extremely unusual. but warranted under the circumstance. Law journals and think tanks started writing about the changing standards of digital accountability, particularly for celebrities. The case was being used as a precedent for how courts would approach similar cases in the future, where online speech directly affects actual world legal proceedings and personal security. Online harassment and whistleblower protection advocacy groups also jumped on the moment. They commended the judge and called for more vigorous enforcement against public figures who use their platforms to harass people. Others cited Musk's apology as vindication of their long-standing contention. Influence has responsibilities, and courts are able to and ought to enforce that maxim. With all the flurry of commentary, even Musk himself was largely quiet after the court appearance. For weeks, his Twitter activity was noticeably slower. The typical bursts of late-night memes, off-the-cuff comments, or snipes at critics were absent. It was a more subdued Elon Musk, one whose online persona had been, at least for the moment, moderated by real-world repercussion. But not everyone thought the transformation would stick. Some analysts felt it was only a matter of time before Musk reverted to type once the spotlight dimmed. Others think the encounter might have imprinted deeper what coming before a judge's direct order and the possibility of further legal action had taught him in very public fashion. That even technology's most unassailable icon was not above being held to account. Whether or not one had an opinion, there was one thing certain. The courtroom moment had become part of Musk's narrative. It would be mentioned in subsequent articles, corporate risk analyses, and online behavior discussions. And for the first time in his life, Musk had been compelled to modify not only a product plan or a launch schedule, but the manner in which he speaks to the world. Elon Musk's apology in court was not simply a matter of legality, it was a fleeting instant of public accountability for one of the world's most outspoken and influential individuals. Though the act of apologizing might be small in and of itself, in light of Musk's decades-long history of defying, disrupting, and dominating, it stood for much more than that. An instance where even a figure as large as himself was reminded that influence has limits, and that those limits aren't solely his to determine. For decades, Musk has existed in a sphere that few do. A cross between business tycoon, cultural figure, and social media troublemaker. He has upended industries, built a loyal following, and dictated popular narratives on several platforms. But that power always had a price tag. His tweets have dictated stock price movement, had an impact on political debates, and even invited the attention of federal regulators at times. But so far, the punishments have been either financial or reputational, not to an individual. This one was different. It was not about a shift in the market or an advisory warning, it was about his words affecting someone. The judge ordering the public personal apology was a turning point away from business strategy and towards personal accountability. It proved that even the most powerful individuals are kept in check by the legal system when their statements go beyond the limit. What made the event even more remarkable was how Musk reacted to it. He didn't meet the decision with an appeal, he didn't rant on social media, rather he obeyed willingly, quietly, and in his own words. Whatever drove him, legal tactics, concerns about corporate image, or actual introspection, the fact is he appeared before a court and apologized for the damage his words wrought. That alone distinguished this chapter from the numerous scandals that have dogged him in the past. The public reaction, the media, and the business community mirrored the nuances of the situation. Some regarded the apology as a watershed moment, proof that even Musk would acknowledge boundaries. Others saw it as performative, an instrument with which to stay out of further legal hot water. But whichever interpretation one places on the event, it will probably serve as a marker for future arguments over public accountability in the digital era. The case also poses questions of a more general character that go beyond Musk himself. How do judges deal with powerful people who use social media to target personal individuals? Where does the line get drawn between free speech and hurtful speech? And how do businesses and investors react when their CEOs become lightning rods for criticism? Ultimately, Musk's apology resolved a legal matter but also opened up a discussion on responsibility, influence, and the increasing potency of online speech. It reminded everyone that nobody, not even a billionaire CEO of several trailblazing companies, is beyond reproach. Whether this is the beginning of permanent change in either the way Musk speaks or the way courts handle such actions in the future is to be seen. But one thing is certain, the apology set the record books ablaze and will not be forgotten anytime soon.